I get tons of questions from y'all over on Instagram. And while I love the engagement that happens on that platform, sometimes questions just need like a deeper dive. So occasionally I pull top questions from Instagram and answer them for you here in more detail. Today I'm answering questions about kids who struggle being left alone in their room at bedtime, whether health insurance covers sleep training services, and why it takes some kids forever to fall asleep at night. Let's answer some of your questions directly. Today's questions are pulled from Instagram. If you have a question that you'd like answered, send me a DM over there. I'm at Awesome Little Sleepers. All right, first question. My 3-year-old really struggles with being left alone. He's attached to my hip all the time, especially at bedtime. Help. Well, getting clingy at bedtime is pretty common with toddlers, but if you've got a kiddo who struggles playing independently or spending time away from you even during the day, I recommend you work on that daytime independence before you even start working on bedtime. And there's a few ways you can do that. All right, the first tip is never sneak out. If your kid struggles with being dropped off at daycare or preschool, or struggles being left with a babysitter, it might seem easier to try to distract them with an activity, get them really involved in doing something, and then when they're not looking, sneak out to avoid all the drama and the tears. But it's actually not the right approach. If you do that, what's going to happen is it can make your child actually more clingy because they're worried that as soon as they look away, you're going to disappear. So it can make them actually really cling on to you to make sure that you stay close to them. So the best thing to do is prep them ahead of time for the situation. Tell them, all right, mommy's going to drop you off at school now. I'm going to drop you off with your teacher and you're going to have a super fun day. You're going to play with all of your friends and then I'll be back to pick you up in a few hours. And then let your child know when you're leaving, say goodbye, keep it brief, and then leave. The second thing to do is keep your word. So when you go back to school to pick them up, let them know that, you left, but you always come back. That helps them start to realize that, oh yeah, she did leave, and I had a fun day without her, but she always comes back to pick me up. You can even repeat a short mantra, something like mommy always comes back, that you can say right when you drop them off and then also right when you pick them up, so it becomes something they start to internalize and even repeat to themselves. This really helps to build our kids' independence and self-reliance, which is exactly what we want for them. All right, the third tip is what I call catching them being good. And this is a great thing to do just at home during the day, especially if you have a kid who struggles to even let you go to the bathroom by yourself. So here's what you do. You get started on an activity with them. Say you're building some Legos or you're working on a puzzle, so your child's engaged in the activity. And then you say, mommy's gonna run to the bathroom real quick, I'll be right back. And then you leave the room for a minute or even less than a minute if you think that's all they can tolerate. And then when you come back in, you kind of reinforce and remind them how well they were doing without you. Let them know something like, oh, you did a great job working on that puzzle when mommy was in the bathroom. It just kind of lets them know oh yeah, I was alone and I was having fun. And, it just reinforces that they can be in a room without you and everything's going to be okay. And then you can slowly extend the time that you leave them to play independently. All right, second question. Does health insurance cover sleep training? Well, okay, so in some countries like Canada and Australia, traditional health insurance may cover the cost of sleep training, but unfortunately in America, it does not. But the good news is that many HSA or FSA plans will cover the cost of a course like my sleep training course, Sleep Tight Without a Fight. And the best part of using your HSA or FSA funds is that you're using pre-tax dollars. Now, you may need to go ahead and prepay and then submit a receipt for reimbursement. So you might want to check with your plan administrator first. And I'm going to link to a blog post in the show notes so that you can get more details. All right, question number 3. My 5-year-old is the queen of keeping herself awake even if we have lights out by 7:45. Why? Okay, well, the first thing to look at is what's happening after lights out. And I guess I should say, I'm going to assume for the sake of this question that when you say lights out, you mean you said your good nights, you turn out the lights, and you leave the room, and then that's when she's still awake, spends a long time awake in her room. So what happens once you, the parent, are actually out of the room? Is she running out of her room a million times asking for all the one mores, like one more hug, one more book? one more potty break? Is there a bunch of like you having to walk her back to her room? Maybe somebody loses their temper, maybe the child, maybe the parent, or a bunch of negotiating, where you say like, okay, I'll get you some more water as long as you promise not to come out of your room again. These are the most common scenarios that I hear about when parents say that it takes their kids a long time to fall asleep after lights out. So if this is what's going on, the reason it's happening is because there's just way too much interaction in that evening period after lights out. She's getting way too much attention for her behavior, even if it's negative attention. So you really need to learn how to eliminate all of that back and forth so that she starts to learn that after lights out, nothing is really going to happen. Nothing else is happening. So to learn more about this, I encourage you to join my Toddler Sleep Masterclass. It's a free class, but you do have to reserve your spot, and you can do that at toddlersleepmasterclass.com. On the other hand, if she isn't coming out of her room after bedtime, let's say you say goodnight, turn out the lights and leave the room, and she's not coming out of her room, but she's just, laying down, just kind of rolling around, having a tough time settling and falling asleep, then it's likely that you're actually putting her to bed a little bit too late. So check out this video.